Good evening. We're at the George Gallery in Vancouver on 140 West Hastings Street. And I'm joined by
Nadija Szram. I'm an artist, and the theme of this show is Take Flight, meaning let your dreams take flight as the inspiration.
Oh, is it a new direction or a further development on what you've worked on before?
Well, what I found that my art is always developing, and it's not so much a further direction, but it's something that's very aligned with my art as well. So that's the reason that I applied for this show and got accepted by the art gallery owner, Teresa Mura, which has turned out quite well for the theme.
Can you talk about the inspirations you have as an artist?
Yes, well, what my inspirations are. To sum it up, it has to do with the beauty of the universe. Higher consciousness ideas have always been an inspiration to me. Sometimes even looking at other artworks, whether it's masters or contemporary, I'll find quite inspiring. And the one thing that I do find very inspiring is color and the way color interacts with each other. And making that, it's really a dance, and making the colors work together. I find that very inspiring.
That's excellent. I have a friend, Douglas Truth, and he says he's also an artist. And one of his best lines is, "I never met a color I didn't like."
I can relate to that very, very well, because I make quite colorful art, and it's always a bit of a, not dilemma exactly, but the colors jump out at me, and then sometimes I try to use too many colors at once because I love them all.
Mm-hmm.
So I relate very much to that. Yeah.
And there's a relationship between the brightness and the intensity of each color next to a different color. How do you work on getting them so they go together?
So they go together? Well, that's actually something I've been working on for a number of years, and it's not easy to do that. Mm-hmm. And I often go in and redo paintings, redo the colors, and at this point, I've worked with it enough that I have some kind of an idea of how they work together, but they always surprise you if you're mixing colors. Mm-hmm. And looking at colors and dimensionality. And I like to do things that will surprise myself as well as the viewer. And mm-hmm. having that color influence your mood or even your physical body. Because even colors can affect your chakras, I found. And I found that too in my previous career, where I was tutoring children, that color can trigger the brain. Mm-hmm. And I've seen that work. So I know what color can do and the effect it can have on people. So to me, color is a great joy. Mm-hmm. I love colors.
Mm-hmm. Any mentors or influencers?
Well, I'd have to say, I've worked with art a lot of my life and a lot of my adult life, and I've put on a lot of art shows. I've been on the other side of the art world, mm-hmm. putting on shows and representing artists. I've put on many, many, many shows, and worked with a lot of artists, sold a lot of art. But then I never thought I'd be on the other side of it. So July the 4th, 2016, I was taking an embossing workshop with EJ Gold. And that's when the inspiration hit me.
Wow.
And I've been painting ever since. And yeah, I would say that was the beginning of it all.
Oh, excellent. What advice would you give to a young budding artist?
For a young artist, I think the main thing is to find your voice. And one way I think to do that is to take art classes, learn different art techniques, art history, look at art. The more that you can absorb of the art world, the better. But then eventually, I think you have to find your voice and use art as an inspiration. But I would say don't necessarily copy artists. The aim isn't to copy someone else that is producing good art, but to find your voice in it.
I was going to say, when I asked you what advice would you give to young artists, don't start. Fine, do something else.
Take a law degree. No, get a real job.
Become a doctor.
Become a doctor first.
You have a following, and how have you gotten people to follow your artwork?
Well, I can't say that I did anything consciously, but I do seem to have a following now, and people that relate to my art can actually buy it. So that's pretty, good for me. So
do you have a website, or are you on social media?
I'm on social media mainly. I did have a website. I don't at the moment, but I'm using mostly Instagram and to a lesser degree Facebook. And I find also word of mouth as well.
I was just looking at your bio, and you are on one of the artists on ifacgroup, the International Fine Art Collectors.
Right.
Has this exhibition been planned? And what I mean is was the work done specifically for this show?
Actually, I painted 2 new pieces for the show, and the one behind me, I painted that specifically for the show. And interestingly enough, it's the one that sold, and sold twice. So the original plus a commission.
Wow.
And then what I did is I redid a lot of the other pieces. Some were ready to go, and I felt that they fit into the theme, but others I wasn't happy with them, and so I redid them.
Okay.
So it took a few weeks to get it ready, because I wanted to redo some of the art to fit into the theme.
Okay. So that leads me to the next question. The originals are available, and if somebody likes a certain piece, you can do another piece that's using some of the same composition?
Right. Using the same colors, or more or less the same format, if they like that.
And it'll be a different piece of
yes,
obviously.
It will be a different piece. And I find that to stay true to the original and to the art, that number one, it's very hard to reproduce a work exactly.
Yeah.
And then you don't want to reproduce it exactly, because you're offering an original artwork to your buyer. So you don't necessarily want to have another work exactly the same.
How about prints? Do you offer any prints?
Interesting you asked that question. So I'm investigating putting prints on Zazzle and perhaps Etsy, but I haven't gotten, the furthest I've gotten is to start an account. But if someone would like a print, I would definitely offer prints of the piece.
We can look forward to that. And then tell us a little bit about your creative process. Do you listen to music? How do you do it?
The best way to describe that is I go through a bit of a ritual before I start.
Oh, okay.
I do listen to music, and mainly from Faxo on Bandcamp.
Okay.
I've gotten quite a few of the albums there. And I don't like to listen to rock music, loud rock music, or music with recognizable words, because the way that I work is I like to get a little bit quiet before and into a bit of a meditative state, and so I've got the music in the background, and then I just make sure all my paints are laid out, all my materials, and then I like to sit with the canvas and have the canvas guide me. Sometimes I have an idea of what I want to do, and maybe the colors that are kind of coming through, or I might be inspired by a certain painting or a dream or a sunset. I find nature is inspiring, and I like to, for me, I like to paint so that it gives the viewer something about like a higher consciousness, where they can come out of their ordinary. At least that's the hope. It's not always achieved, I know, but that's my goal for the viewer, and just to have a different experience. And I don't paint sort of what you might call the dark side of life. I find that I want to focus on something else, and that's usually the inspiration for the work.
How would you like people to see or think about your art?
Well, actually, I like people to see my art in person, and I know it's not a bit of a joke. It's because the reason for that is I use a lot of texture. I always begin with texturizing the painting first and letting that layer dry. And then I like to paint in different times of the day as well. So if I do a session, like a 6-hour session, I'll take breaks as well. And when I find that I'm kind of getting more into my head or into my mind, I'll take a break, because I want something else to flow through me to represent that artwork. So I'll take a break and then come back to it and then paint in a different light, so that there's always something that you can discover in a different light, because I like to use even fluorescence, and I like to do color shifting using modern materials, iridescent materials, gold leaf, and each painting usually is infused with a little bit of a metallic or a fluorescent, so that you can enjoy it in different. It's like an artwork can look different in different lights of the day, and I like my art to reflect that. I get a real joy out of that, so that when you buy the piece of art, it might shapeshift, and I just find that a lot of fun to do.
Yeah, I can certainly appreciate that, because even looking at your pieces from this angle and I walk over to the other side of the room, it looks different.
Correct.
There's differences. It's similar to when the pitch in your ear also changes.
Correct. Yeah. And there's always a little added surprise. Like I'll use a lot of times, like especially on the one to the left of me, there's pearlescent paint, that you actually can't see until a certain light hits
Oh.
it. So then you get a little surprise. It's like, oh, look at that. And I find that just a lot of fun. It's like a piece of music, you know, where there's always something different to discover.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
keep seeing different things in it, so it's not just a static piece of...
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I find that that's fun too, because in nature, if you look at a sunset at different times, you'll get completely different things and different pictures. So that's always fun to do.
So, what was it that brought you to the moment where you decided that you wanted to paint?
Well, when that inspiration, I called it, hit me, I just started painting. I never thought I would be an artist. I always thought that I would be on the other side of it. So then when that hit, all I can say is that art, it just became my discipline. It became my mistress, my lover, my... I know that I'm going to paint, which is usually I try it every day. I focus on getting my body in the best shape that I can. Gave up sugar so that I wouldn't.
Wow.
So I'd feel better about painting. Gave up coffee because I found that it got me too jittery, or it gave me a lot of indigestion, for example. So it becomes a discipline for me, and you know, not going out, not engaging in a lot of social activities. I find so it's once it becomes that kind of discipline, it's also a little bit lonely because you're sitting. It's just the art and yourself, and to get into that state where I'm always striving to get the mind out of the way. So you're more in an intuitive space, or a space where the art is talking to you. I've been known to talk to my canvases, to tell them, hey, I'm looking for a great home for you. I know you like it here, but I'd like to get you a home. And I have been known to talk to my art, which I've never admitted, especially publicly, because it maybe can get you committed. But also sometimes I feel like I'm a midwife to the artwork, that the art wants to go I might have an idea of what I want to do, and then the art goes in a different way. And that's one thing that I don't control. I let it go to where it wants to go. And so sometimes it's a bit difficult to make art in a certain theme and have them all in those kind of colors or certain style, say, because maybe in the middle of it, it just doesn't want to go there. And then you're having to control it by using your mind and kind of a paint by number. I've got to put this color here or that there, and it doesn't want to do that. So that's the other thing, is that I just let it go where it wants to go. And so that's my process.
So you...
and I wanted to say another little story about my art and why I like it when people see it in person. So one day someone came to the door that was working in a film crew and wanted to know if they could film the house. So we got to talking, and she asked me what I did, and I said I was an artist. And she said, oh, I'm looking for a piece of art for my house. And I said, oh, interesting. I said, well, look, this, and I had my phone in my hand, and I said, well, look, here's a piece I've just finished. And she said, oh, no, that doesn't speak to me. Could you show me something else? And I said, yeah, sure, come on in and I'll show you. So she came in, and the piece that she had just looked at was on my easel. And she came in and she said, oh, I really like that one. And I said, well, that's the one I just showed you. So for me, that was kind of an eye-opener. And so it kind of begs the question, am I not... I find that the camera doesn't always pick up the nuances in my art or the texture.
Yes.
You know, and a lot of that is also learning how to photograph your art so that it does show that. So that's actually what I've worked on quite a bit.
Yeah, well, the cameras are still modeling what we're seeing. So I've noticed when I take pictures, the colors aren't the same as when you see them.
Exactly. Yeah.
So you've mostly answered this question, but I'm just going to put it to you anyway, just in case there's something. Why do you paint?
I paint because I'm obsessed, and I can't stop. At this point, it's a part of me, and it's probably a really good. If you're going to have an addiction, you might as well have one that serves you and serves the purpose and the greater good. And one thing I must say, though, it is fun to get it out. Otherwise, you become an art hoarder. And there's a certain flow that's established when your art is seen by another person and they buy it. Number one, it's a great joy inside that someone sees what you're seeing, or maybe sees the vision that you're trying to put out into the world, and it establishes a flow too that lets you continue with your art practice. Because otherwise you have to find a way to support that habit. Because if you can't stop painting, which I can't seem to do it, I've tried, and it calls to me. It tells me, hey, you know, I'll lay in bed at night before I fall asleep, and I'll see colors, or colors come to me, and then I'll go, oh wow, I want to do the purples and the pinks, or whatever it is. I'll actually see that color in my mind. So yeah.
On the canvas, do you have them already gessoed, or do you gesso them yourself, or?
Well, the first stage is I mix up my own formula of texture.
Okay.
And then I apply that the day before I paint, because it has to dry. Because I don't often work wet on wet. I usually sometimes I do, but usually I let the texture dry first, and then the next day I'll start the painting. So the texture gives it another dimension, I find. And some of them are heavily textured, and some are just lightly textured. It's just whatever that canvas wants, I do.
And what's next for Nadija Szram?
Well, next is to keep going. To keep going. And I hope to establish relationships with art buyers, art appreciators. And I guess the next is just to keep painting. I don't have like a specific goal, you know, perhaps I should, but just I'd like to keep doing what I do and keep developing. And I find the more I paint, the more I learn.
Yeah. So I was, when you were talking about talking to the canvas, I just wanted to point out, officer, we're nearly done. You can take her back in a couple of minutes. Okay.
Oh, I forgot to mention that I love the smell of fresh canvas. Apart from talking to it, I smell it and feel it at first.